In a world full of mysteries, the 240-page tome, the Voynich Manuscript stands alone as perhaps the most perplexing of them all, filled with strange illustrations and written in an unknown language that no one, not even the best cryptographers, have been able to decode.
What secrets are hidden within its pages? Join us as we explore the origins, theories, and enigmatic allure of this indecipherable book. Is it a lost alchemical formula, an alien artifact, or a medieval hoax? Tonight on Zumundous, we unravel the mystery together. And welcome to Zumundous Podcast, Episode 1.
Yes.
I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
And we are, if this is your first time tuning in to listen to us talk, thank you so much for coming and checking out the podcast.
Appreciate it.
If you are a carryover from our old podcast, Zumundo, which we just ended last week, this is officially the spinoff we were talking about. So for those of you who are not in the know, we had a Mysterious World segment on our pop culture podcast called, Mysterious World,
right,
as I just said. And we kind of covered mysteries of the unexplained. And we, after doing this for about a year and a half, we really kind of came to the conclusion that a lot of people just said, you know what, just do the Mysterious World.
It was their favorite part.
That was the favorite part.
Yeah.
That was the meat of what everybody really liked. So we cut out all the fat, and we're just going to get into like the mysteries of the unexplained and the unknown. And without any further ado, man, I think we should just jump on into it.
Let's do it.
All right,
Maybe
here we
we'll
go.
learn something.
So, yeah, man, Keith and I are a big fan of unsolved mysteries, supernatural, paranormal,
great shows,
true crimes,
the X-Files, all that good fun stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So that's why we incorporated it into Zumundo, and that's why it's carrying over into our new spin-off podcast, Zumundous,
which you're listening to now.
Which you are now listening to, Zumundous podcast. Yeah, so I was looking for, Keith, I was looking for something kind of fun to talk about for our first pilot episode, maybe something we hadn't talked about on Zumundo yet, and I found some interesting stuff on the Voynich Manuscript.
Right.
And I thought this would be a really cool topic of conversation for tonight.
Yeah, and it's come up on the show before, but not in
other show.
Yeah, not in detail. This thing's super interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you think of like books like the Necronomicon or something like that, and I feel like maybe that, I mean, there I don't know if there's anything particularly evil about this book or anything like that, but it's definitely something that's like steeped.
It's mysterious.
It's definitely very mysterious, and it's stumped a lot of people for a long time. And that is this this book that is referred to as the Voynich Manuscript, and it is known as one of the most mysterious and undeciphered text of history.
Indeed.
This thing has strange pictures, because we both did some research into this, has strange pictures of both real and imaginary plants and animals, floating castles, astrology diagrams, and a lot of other like very strange pictures. Yeah. And this
plants that are seemingly from another planet.
Yeah, exactly. Plants that are seemingly from another planet, plants and creatures that are maybe not of this world. This thing is, it's since its discovery has stumped scholars, cryptographers, and even they've even in their more recent years tried to take the images and text from this book and plug it into AI.
Right.
And even AI can't decipher it.
Physicists have taken a look, computer scientists, which goes along with the AI thing. And a few years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, a researcher from Germany has claimed that he has decoded the entire book.
No, I hadn't heard this in my research. Really?
Yeah. I'm not putting a lot of weight behind that.
Okay. It could just be somebody looking for a little bit of clout, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Could be.
And it's been a few years, and he said it would take a few years, so I haven't seen the decoded version of this book yet.
Okay.
I first heard about this thing, actually, I think on Ancient Aliens, maybe.
What if it was like they decoded it and it just said, "Remember to drink your Ovaltine"?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. A crummy commercial? Yeah, exactly. If you want to talk about some of the books, you want to talk about?
Well, let's. I want to talk a little bit about where this book came from a little bit. I got a little bit of backstory here for it. this thing is named for Wilfrid Voynich.
Yes.
So this guy was a Polish book dealer back in 1912, and allegedly, so the story says, so the story goes, found this manuscript at a Jesuit college in Italy in 1912 while exploring a collection of texts that they had like in like the library, essentially. So Voynich read this and just became immediately obsessed with this manuscript, seeing it as a potential treasure trove of lost knowledge. Because, like, what are these symbols? What are these pictures? Like, what do they mean? Like, what is this language? And this guy's been studying this stuff for years, didn't recognize any of it, right?
Right. The language is pretty interesting, and so are the art. Like the art is. The text and the illustrations are all clearly characteristically European of the time that this book came out. We're talking like 600 years ago.
Right.
And it has been carbon dated.
And it's been carbon dated, so we know it wasn't like he didn't just create this and be like, oh, there's this book I found.
Right.
It's been carbon dated, like we know that much. And this is going back to some point in the 1400s, I think, like
between 14. I have the dates here between 1404 and 1438, somewhere in that time frame. And the inks and stuff all line up too. So if he did. I'm not blaming this on him, but if somebody were to forge it, I don't know if that's even the right term. Create it, right?
Sure, create it under the guise of making a hoax, basically.
They did it with like new old stock stuff. It was all, which I think would be difficult to do because I don't know where you get ink from back then. Yeah, paper and such. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a store for that.
Maybe he went back in time and he forged it and then went back forward in time and left it for himself to find later.
That could be.
Nah, probably not. Probably not. So, and this is the manuscript itself is thought to have, and allegedly, this is, we're just kind of going on stories, things we found on the internet. And of course, we know everything we see on the internet is true. So, the manuscript is thought to have passed through the hands of famous figures, including Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire, who apparently paid a lot of money for it. I don't know if you have that in your notes or not as well.
And that was supposedly sold to him by John Dee, the famous mathematician.
Really?
Around 1600.
Oh, so about 200. So at that point, that thing's still like, it's around 200 years old at that point in the 1600s. That's wild, dude.
Edward Kelly may have also created the manuscript as a fraud. That was another thing. That picture's on.
We'll get to that when we get to like the theories and things like that.
So it's been in some possessions.
Well, here's the one thing that's interesting about it is like, so if for the text that is recorded in this tome, you have people who are like, linguists and things like that. They're people that study languages and that kind of thing. They've looked at it, but the strange thing is that even if you're looking at a text that you don't know how to read, if you break it down and you start looking at, like if I had Arabic in front of me, like I don't know how to read Arabic, but if I'm looking at Arabic and I'm breaking down the letters or I'm breaking down all the symbols and letters and things like that, there is a certain science that goes into like with our speech patterns and things like that. Yeah, the structure of it. And letters and groups of letters will usually appear in groups and within a certain frequency. You know what I mean? Like for instance, in the English language, like E and A tend to go together a lot for a lot of things.
RSTLNE, to quote Wheel of Fortune.
I'd like to buy a vowel.
Those are common letters.
But the thing about the crazy thing about this language, which has kind of become known as Voynichese, if you will.
Right.
This doesn't really seem to follow any sort of known pattern that any civilization has ever followed in history.
Well, it has 20 to 25 individual unique characters. Mm-hmm. And that being said, the words are no smaller than 2 letters. So there's no like A or I in there as a single word. And none of the words are larger than 10 characters. From what I read.
No words larger than 10 characters, really.
So that's kind of interesting. And there is some sort of structure to it, but like you said, the letters don't line up in a structure.
Right.
Even though the patterns line up in a structure, maybe. Mm-hmm. So the patterns might make it appear to look like a sentence, but the letters in the sentence might be scrambled. I don't know if that's intentional. Or
it's crazy though, because like usually like if you
TH is always near each other, right? Things like that. If you don't see that in this particular writing.
Well, if you put like a language that somebody doesn't know within, to somebody that basically studies languages for a living, eventually they might not be able to fully understand it, but they can break down the pattern at some point. Like, okay, I think this means that maybe this is a vowel, or maybe this represents this,
or this is a common word.
Yeah, exactly. But so far, like there's no structure that they've been able to follow. But and
they've run it through, like you said, AI, a bunch of different linguists. Somebody said it was possibly a version of Hebrew. They did run it through Google Translate at one point, but it doesn't make sense when you do that. So it's really, people have taken a legitimate stab at the language side of this thing.
Yeah. Well, let's if it's cool with you, let's jump into like some speculations about the origins of words. And there's wide ranging speculations. Yeah. Some are a little bit more down to earth. Some of them are more out of this world, quite literally.
Yes.
So the origins, like, we still don't know where this thing came from. A lot of people speculate that it might have been created at some point in medieval Europe, which we know is probably most accurate because it's been carved 14. Right? I think, and I have the exact year here, between 1404 and 1438. Yeah, so at some point in the early 1400s, like during the Renaissance period, essentially.
And that is the carbon dating that the University of Arizona did. So that's
right. So I don't know if it's
one of the facts that we have, right?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know if it's like safe we probably can't call it ancient. I don't think Renaissance.
It's medieval.
Medieval, not ancient, but medieval.
They call it a medieval codex, and it's kind of funny they say codex. We don't use that word too much nowadays, but that's one of the things and it doesn't really fit into a normal classification. It's not a history book. It's very scientific, but it's got a lot of stuff going on there. Mm-hmm. There's even a medical portion.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And 240 pages. It covers a lot of ground.
It covers a lot of stuff, but that we have no idea what it's covering exactly, except for maybe the pictures.
We can speculate judging by the pictures. Yeah. It's a picture book. It's a television commercial.
That's a throwback from Zumundo.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine, man. I imagine like a lot of the things from Zumundo are going to come into play here. But the question is, like, some people have speculated maybe it's a cipher. Maybe it was intentionally written in code for like some secret spy purposes or something that was happening in the 1400s.
I actually read that it was a Latin code, like Latin shorthand kind of code, but they haven't been able to prove it.
Well, yeah. Another speculation is it was written himself by Voynich. But that's the thing. Like, okay, well, unless Voynich, as I was joking earlier, unless he had a time machine, you can't go back in time
unless he had magically all the unless he had all the instrumentation to create this,
right?
Which is quills and pens and inks and paper. It's kind of odd. And if you go online, you can look up exactly what this thing was created out of. So they've actually done a lot of work in that.
Another speculation here is that maybe it was ancient scholars, or not ancient, but medieval scholars that were attempting to write an alphabet for a language that was dead and is probably still dead. But essentially, there was a language that they were studying. That language never had a written word, so they were trying to create an alphabet for this now dead language,
like a defunct,
essentially.
Speech. Okay.
But if so,
I would still think the structure would be different.
Yeah, but the thing is, if so, then like that begs the question, like, all right, well, which civilization was it exactly? And you'd think that they would put like a foreword in it, like, this is Italian scholar, such and such. This is our attempt to cipher this dead language, and then that also doesn't explain the strange pictures that we saw in it. Another speculation is that maybe it was a coven of Italian witches, but
I didn't hear that one.
But that's also like, but a witch would have just spoken the language of whatever was the spoken language of the time, right? So why would they have written that?
Yeah, that doesn't hold a lot of weight with me.
No, same here. And then this one definitely doesn't hold a lot of weight with me, and that is, of course, the alien theory, specifically Martians, which are like, okay.
From Mars, right? So the alien theory, I would say, is interesting. I've heard that potentially it's an alien that crashed here, knowing that we couldn't, because it was the Middle Ages, right?
Sure.
Medieval times, whatever you want to call it. That he couldn't get back, or she, to their planet, so they decided to document their time both here on Earth and maybe back from their life,
okay,
in another world. And the reason why this
is cool, by the way, I'm glad you researched this,
has a little bit of weight to it, is because there's a whole astrological section of the book, and there are real, what do you call them? Sagittarius, Pisces, all this stuff. There's real what are those called? Stars, groups of stars.
Zodiacs?
Yeah, there's zodiac symbols.
Constellations.
Constellations,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm just drawing a blank.
No
so
words.
There are actual
We went to public school.
constellations in this book, but they're slightly different. Almost that maybe they were viewed from another angle, which would make sense. So if you're from... Now, granted, I don't know to the naked eye or what you'd be able to record growing up. Like I can draw some of them in theory, right?
Right.
The Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, the Southern Cross, some of the easy ones. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not to scale, but from my mind's eye, what they would look like. Now, how different would they look at, like, even at a place as close as Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri?
Proxima Centauri is the next closest star. Yeah.
I don't know how different they would look to them, vice us. So there's no speculation as to where said alien would have been from necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another part of the mystery.
No, that's great though. I mean, this is all part of like the wild speculation of this, and that's why we're here, is to get into this stuff.
Very wild.
But let's talk about, like, not so much where it traveled from, but maybe where it might have traveled to once it landed here on Earth over the centuries, or, from wherever it was written. So, allegedly, this manuscript mysteriously appeared and disappeared from various collections. Now, it spent years in obscurity before landing in Voynich's hands.
Right.
So, I mean, that begs the question, like, who had it?
Where do I come from?
But where do I get? That's once again for
That's
those of
just
you
pop culture
new
references,
listeners. This is a carryover from Zumundo.
We quote a lot of movies and stuff.
You're going to get a lot of those. So thanks for sticking with us here. But but that begs the question. Like, if he found it in 1912. And, it possibly was in the hands of like Holy Roman Emperor and stuff like that.
Could be.
And landed at this Jesuit college in Italy. Like, where was it over the years? You know what I mean? And why was it just like sitting there collecting dust, essentially?
I mean, I've seen some old books tucked away in stores and stuff like that in people's houses that you're like, where did this come from? I don't know. I had a book from the 30s that I don't even know how I got it, at one point. Probably don't have it anymore, but maybe I still do. I don't know. But, these things come up in different collections at different time periods. I would think, though, if it was at some place like the Vatican, it would have stayed there in the, supposed big library that they have, or someplace like that.
Yeah,
and it currently resides in a big library of obscure books, specifically.
You know exactly where it is now currently?
It is at a university, I believe, in the United States. I read this, but I actually did not write that down.
I'll tell you, I'll let you Google that while I hit this next point. You can get back to me on that, because I would love to know. So let's back it up here a little bit. Voynich found the book, and he made efforts to have scholars decode the manuscript. Nobody could crack its language. Nobody could understand the strange drawings. And this kind of led to like more than a century. You gotta think like, okay, so we're in 2024 now. So this is 112 years ago where he found this book, and over a century, like nobody's been able to crack it, understand the writing, solve whatever it means that the pictures represent. So, go ahead.
Oh, I got the location.
Okay, where is it?
It's in the, I don't know how to say this, but it's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. So it's at Yale.
It's at Yale University.
It's been there since 1969.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right, cool. So and I'll pose this question to you, man. What exactly makes the Voynich manuscript so impenetrable? Is it the language, the symbols, or maybe something a little bit more mysterious?
Well, there's the other theory is that maybe it comes from a different dimension. That's the other thing.
I mean, at this point, if we're talking about it being from another planet, I'll buy it being from another dimension.
Right. Where it's similar but different enough.
Exactly. Like an alternate reality.
So it's the
kind of like the Green Children that we talked about back in Zumundo.
There you go. That's a good one. Or kind of a Mandela effect, right? Everything's split. We're in two different worlds. That sort of thing.
So no, it's cool. So I just want to tell you a little bit. Voynichese, which is what as I mentioned earlier, the name given to the unknown script used in the manuscript. Just so you know, so this text is specifically written from left to right, same way that we read the English language and several other languages, with over 170,000 characters, forming words and paragraphs that follow some grammatical rules, but not any of them that we're familiar with.
I would think I keep going back to that, but out of boredom, let's say you're handwriting this whole thing, you would eventually start making patterns. your mind just wouldn't make that many random
170,000. Like, you got to think, and that's within 240 pages. That's a lot of different characters, man.
It is.
Like,
It is.
yeah.
I mean, it's 20. What is it?
So
About 25.
Yeah, I mean,
characters.
so at that point, I'm thinking it's more of like it's got to be like less of like an English or a romance-based language where we have letters that create sounds, and more of a pictorial thing, almost like an Asian type language where
like a
you have
pictogram.
like where you have, or hieroglyphics almost, where you have
Could be.
Well, you have pictures that represent things rather than letters that represent sounds.
Could be.
So
a lot of pictures to memorize.
As you mentioned, scholars have attempted to compare the languages to Latin, Hebrew, Arabic. Nothing even comes close to matching up. And so the question is, if the text resembles real language patterns, or if it's a cipher, unknown tongue, or maybe it's just, gibberish of maybe a mad person.
It could be. Oh, well, that's another theory, yeah.
That could be.
I just don't know. I mean, well, you don't know why a mad person would do anything, right? But,
exactly.
Would have so many different subjects
I mean,
in their book.
a mad person could just sit down and write this book, and it makes perfect sense in his or her mind, obviously.
Oh, you mean like something that they understood legitimately?
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
I
don't know, but it's just like,
I keep thinking
but even a mad person, even a crazy person, like, if you ever sit down and read like a crazy person's manifesto or something like that, like, it's like, yeah, it's insane, but also like, okay, but the words make sense. The words are creating coherent thoughts and structures. So why would they write it like this? Countless cryptographers, including World War II code breakers, also tried to,
which are amazing because they did a really good job.
Yep, absolutely. And then once again, and going back to the AI thing in 2019, they plugged it into AI in 2019, and the AI suggested possibly a link to Hebrew, but that was like the closest they could get.
So he said like either Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic were the three that were the closest in structure, and then they tried to go a little bit further and refine it, and once again came up empty-handed with any translation.
Man,
you'd think. Yeah, I mean, it's also 2024 now, so maybe the AI is a little better,
a little bit more advanced and stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm sure
somebody would have already run it through Google if it was capable.
I'm sure. Yeah.
There is PDFs online supposedly of this thing decoded. I didn't read any of that because I was like, I doubt it's accurate.
Well, did you in your research of this? Did you find anything on Zipf's law?
Zipf's law? No, actually. Didn't.
So not Zipf's law, but Zipf's ZPIF''S, like somebody named Zipf's law, and basically this is a mathematician that found that Voynich strangely seems to follow a mathematical pattern
that could be
hinting at basically it's a mathematical code.
Yeah.
But I mean, once you open the door to mathematics, like that's almost it's almost endless possibilities. You need like Russell Crowe from A Beautiful Mind to like come and like decipher that shit at that point.
Or Matt Damon, right?
Matt Damon
solve them apples. Yeah.
But of course, there's also the hoax hypothesis, which is here's the thing: is
the hoax hypothesis.
Yeah, but as I said though, but with the hoax hypothesis. Where it could be an elaborate hoax from like but it's just like we've carbon dated. It's like, all right, how are you going to find like something from 500 years ago that was a hoax? Well, and who in the Middle Ages had time for hoaxes?
I would normally say kids, but adults, everybody, people have imaginations. We've been writing stories since we could write things down. So. There could definitely be a hoax or just a funny thing that some people got together, maybe in one person, and decided to make it back then legitimately. And it has just been this rare oddity ever since. We've never found another copy that I'm aware of. Or I'm not sure if they've even found anything like it, to be honest.
Yeah. What about some of the pictures that are in it? Like,
pictures are pretty interesting.
Yeah, we can like jump into some of the pictures on this, man, because it's crazy because they talk about like there's plants like there's drawings of plants in there that are like not of this world.
No, they're green. They're kind of flowery, some of them, but they're shaped different. They don't have the normal structure that we learn in school here anyway. Would you say public education, right? We're not botanists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the record.
Yeah. Also Matt Damon from that Mars movie. But there is a botanical section, and it's odd. The things look like they have roots. Like one of them, kind of almost like Dr. Seuss characters. If that makes sense. And then maybe like a big Venus flytrap looking petal on one. Or,
well, that kind of lends credence to like ancient origins. I'm sorry, not ancient, alien origins, and that's the idea that it was written by aliens and then handed off to humans, and that the plants depicted could be from another world or civilization, and that kind of, and it's also kind of given a little bit of weight because of the astrological diagrams that people think might represent alien star systems or for interstellar navigation. Then, of course, we have lost civilizations. The manuscript could have originated from a forgotten or lost civilization. It could represent ancient knowledge that has been obscured by time, or something that we have no record of today. And that's something like we talked about on the old show of lost civilizations. Like if something is lost to time, because there's, like I have pretty foreign to us, I have no doubt in my mind that there's civilizations that we've lost track of. You know what I mean?
Found a wall that somebody's like, it's natural in like the top of a mountain in Montana, clearing some trees. And there's like a wall up there, kind of like the Phocian wall or, the wall in and
they don't know where the hell it came from,
this
right?
Looks like a wall. And everybody's just like looking at it laughing. They're like, okay, how do we explain this?
Well, one of the things I've always said, I was like, okay, how long has man been on Earth?
A while,
like about 100,000 years, which, in the cosmic scale is like nothing. That's like the blink of an eye. However, in terms of civilization, that's a long time. Now, how much does our recorded history go back? Like 4,000, 5,000 years. And do we know anything that happened before 5,000 years ago? Like, not really.
Well, we've dated that one, the place they found in Turkey to like 12,000 years old, which blows our mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, wait a second, this is
12,000 years ago. Like shit, that was like the last ice age, man. Like that's crazy.
Like, what's going on?
But humans were here. Yeah. They were here. We just don't know what any of those civilizations looked like back then.
And who knows what happens to, I guess I'm not saying there was big wind and it just blew all the remains of all the humans before. Obviously, because we have fossils and stuff that are millions of years old. It doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of potentials there. We've seen flooding in areas and stuff gets uncovered, and the world's changed a little bit since then. So we've definitely lost some stuff, and some of these technologies. I mean, there's some amazing things that just still are having a little bit of trouble explaining. But we're looking at it from our point of view, our experience and our knowledge base. So,
I mean, then of course, maybe it was just maybe it was just built up by a Renaissance artist or scholar looking to make money from wealthy collectors of rare,
some wild pictures.
Like maybe like there was a Renaissance scholar that just wanted to sell it to like a collector or something back in the day, and make a couple bucks off of it.
Somebody might have talked about. I mean, I don't know how common the conversation of aliens or other worlds would have been back then, but maybe somebody was like, "Hey, I want a book that looks like it was written on another planet." Okay, cool. Let's figure that out.
Yeah,
just something cool to look at.
It could have just been like, it could have just been a gag.
Or an art project.
It could have been a joke in the 1400s, like an inside joke between like a group of scholars in Italy back then. We just don't know.
Yeah, they did. They have narrowed it down. That's probably from northern Italy, though. Judging by the materials.
So I mean, I guess it just kind of begs the question.
Where do you think it came from? To the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was going to ask you guys. Like, if you guys you want to kind of throw yourself in on a little bit of this topic, you can email us at Zumundo, ZUMUNDO, @outlook.com, and we can definly talk about it while we're recording, and we can do that as like a follow up or something to one of these. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it with this, unless you have any more follow ups on this.
No.
All right.
It's just something that everybody can start playing with themselves and learn a lot.
You're gonna start playing with themselves?
No, not like that. Like the ideas and
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. So I'm just gonna leave you with this question, guys. Whether the Voynich Manuscript is a key to lost knowledge or a cleverly crafted riddle, a big hoax, it continues to baffle and intrigue us to this day. What do you believe? Does it hide profound secrets, or maybe it's just an elaborate joke? So we'll talk about that maybe some other time if somebody emails us about it. But for our pilot episode of Zumundous, I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
And have a Zumundous week, everybody. We will see you next time.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that somebody thought it was from the inside world.
Ooh, like the upside down, like in Stranger Things?
Yeah, like
maybe
Hollow Earth theory kind of
thing. Did they face off with Vecna?
I don't know.
They should.
I don't know. That would be the Hollow Earth people. Like, that's the point.
Oh, man. We can get into Hollow Earth, man. That's a cool theory. I dig it, dude.
Zumundous.